everybody. This is Paul from What's Wrong With Us, and as always, with me is my good buddy Damian Stevens. How you doing, Dam?
I'm doing great.
How great are you? You're so great that
I'm so great that I could do a podcast.
That's
besides politics and everything else.
Oh my god, dude! What a freaking mess.
Yeah, I didn't do the whole eclipse thing, but I saw that you had quite a rig set up.
I did, yeah. I definitely did that. I have a lot of footage to go through, to be honest. But I put a couple of shots on there, and it was pretty crazy. But then I got like 1/3 through the whole eclipse, and then clouds rolled in like you couldn't believe, which made it very, very difficult to move forward from that point forth. It was a nightmare from that point on. But the first third looks stellar.
We didn't get much down here. We got like a cloud went over. That was about it.
Yeah. Well, you guys weren't exactly in the path.
No, but I think like a quarter, 20%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had 92%, which is really great. But like I said, once the clouds came, it just kind of diffused everything, and it made it tricky.
So you saw some of the posts that I've been putting up. I've been finding some kind of outlandish things.
Yes, I have.
There's some really interesting folks out there that do all kinds of interesting things.
That's really descriptive, the word interesting.
It's interesting. I'll give you an example.
Please.
The chainsaw.
Yes.
They actually have a chainsaw competition, which I think is so interesting. If you were to travel the interstates of America, all of these things that you would miss, that you would never know that actually occur.
Sure.
And, 2 miles the interstate, 3 miles off the interstate. And it's it would be akin to, we had the mud bog at Giroux's farm back in the 70s.
Yes. Yeah.
You would never know that stuff is going on in New Fairfield.
Yeah, absolutely.
These guys had a chainsaw. They had a Chevy small block, powered by a Chevy small block motor. And apparently the competition is you have to saw through this 4-foot diameter log in record time. And I think it went faster than a hot knife through butter. But
it had to have, right?
Really big block. And 2 guys lifted up. Bubba was one guy, and probably, I don't know, Derek. Derek was his friend, and they pick it up and then slice this thing right through. I said, well, listen, different strokes for different folks. You find competitions out there for all kinds of crazy stuff.
Absolutely. I'm a big, I'm a road trip kind of guy, and I always tell people that if there's one trip you got to do Old Route 66 from Chicago to the Santa Monica Pier, because you will see things that you won't see anywhere else. I mean, we know about the Cadillac Ranch, and but there's other things.
Is that where the biggest yarn ball?
Yes.
The biggest yarn ball?
Yeah, and the world's biggest frying pan.
Okay.
And everything in between, and it's just like, I don't know. There's that.
UFO people got to be in there somewhere too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's nuts. See, we're funny people. As civilized as we are not very civilized.
So I did come across a video posted by the guy when we originally hooked up. The guy who cyber attacks, he scams the scammers.
Yeah.
Right. I forget his name.
Are we talking about Pierogis?
And yeah. The one video I posted recently.
Yep.
Where he really got into it, and it had to do with senior citizens. And I liked it because it told his story. I didn't really know his story before. And I find it's an interesting story.
Very.
Using his skills because his grandmama got scammed.
That's right.
So he decided, why don't I use my skills? Which leads me to my next question. Why does it take a private citizen to do this when it's such an attack on so many folks in America?
That's an excellent question.
They're specifically attacking all kinds, the Lonely Hearts folks.
Sure, as we've talked, yeah.
As we've spoken about. Why isn't the government doing anything? In our state alone, DeSantis allocated $3 million for voter fraud, and those voter fraud office was specifically intended to investigate those who got voter cards who were ex-felons, even though that the rules had changed and these were law-abiding citizens and they didn't know. For that $3 million, 7 people they arrested. But they have a whole office. They allocated $3 million to an office to arrest 7 people, and they all got overturned. They all got overturned.
Oh man,
so it's just like a government waste. You'll put together, allocate funds for things that just don't exist. But this is a really big problem, especially given that a lot of seniors live in the state of Florida. One might think that the governor would allocate that money toward setting up an office and hiring a guy or 2 like him.
Yeah.
That's what one would think, but no, it doesn't happen. So we need guys like him from the private sector.
Absolutely. And why is that? I certainly don't have an answer. I think people one can speculate, and I don't like to speculate very much. I like to go on what I can see and what I know. But when people are more concerned with their own image, meaning politicians, as opposed to actually helping people that they supposedly represent.
Well, given the fact that he's losing a toehold in that population as a Republican down here, it's probably going to win obviously we're a red state. But he's losing a large part of that up in the Winter Haven area, where it was a huge Trump area. And DeSantis is losing a lot of that ground because of his war with Disney and everything else. So to get back some of that voting block in that voting demographic, if I were his political consultant, I'd say, hey, this is a good idea.
Yeah.
Instead of your 7 people arrested, $3 million department, which he said he was going to allocate more to, whatever.
What politician doesn't have an agenda, though, right? And it seems to be more and more like that. As we get older, it just feels like it goes right back to the cliquey popularity contests that we used to talk about when we were kids. And then I think you also have this, they have their own agenda. They're going to make sure that this thing is taken care of, that one thing, whatever that is. And they're not really, again, representing a population of people. Not all.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of times, most oftentimes, that's also lip service. Think about how many times, that these politicians will campaign on a subject, and this is my one thing. Where is it? I'm going to replace Obamacare. No, you didn't. Mexico's going to pay for the wall. No, you didn't. I mean, you have to come through with some of your main campaign promise. What is it? And how many? It's just lip service. Mm-hmm. And it's terrible.
It happens on both sides.
That's on both sides.
It totally happens on both sides. Yeah.
Absolutely.
When Obama was running, there were rumors talking about the space program and what might happen, and he promised everybody in Florida that was working for NASA, you're not going to lose your jobs. And then there was no NASA for 8 years. It just nothing happened, and
There's no funding.
there was nothing happened.
Well, that's when they were retiring the shuttle, I believe, right? Right around that same time.
Right around the same time, but there was the development of nothing, and now we have to bring in a billionaire to work with said company to get something into space.
Right.
We have a whole government agency dedicated to this, but they couldn't do a damn thing. It's just crazy to me.
Yeah.
And there's certainly things that I liked about Obama, but I never understood that, making a promise to so many people, and those people didn't have jobs for 8 years, and they didn't know what the hell.
Well, I think that's a great example of why Americans have a distrust in government-run things. Anytime the government gets their hands in it, things just get bogged down. Unfortunately, oftentimes when it's privatized, people get greedy, and then they start doing other things. Mm-hmm. all the way down to the sub that was lost going to the Titanic.
Right.
There's no regulation there. You know what I mean?
God.
Privatized. I'm gonna $275,000 to go down. You know,
It's carbon fiber. Carbon fiber's strong, right?
no.
Making.
I don't think so. Why don't you send that into space and see what happens?
I mean, making a car out of carbon fiber, that's one thing. But making something that's going to the depths of the depths, it's going to get crushed. There was no testing, nothing.
Nothing. No, there was no regulations, which goes back to big government, small government.
Yeah.
You know, anytime things go wrong, people want big government because they want somebody to blame, right? It's always a catastrophe, whether it's that sub or whether we have the Baltimore Bridge,
right?
Bridge in Baltimore, or they have, you know, it's all the way down to 9/11 hijacking. Now you want those regulations. Now you want the government oversight. Don't come crying back when you don't want any.
It's funny that you bring it up like that.
Inconvenience.
Yeah, but it's also the opposition, right? So if one party is saying, hey, this is what we're going to do, the other party is, simply because they're opposition, is going to say no, even if it's a good idea.
Right.
No.
Right. Well, we're seeing that all the time now in politics, which is, I mean, it just gotten to a boiling point now where they're just saying no, and they don't care about what's good. It's all about my votes, and look what I'm doing. You go back home to your rural area in Georgia, and you say, "Look how I stood up to them. Look what and you'll get reelected." But that person is not doing anything to further. It's the least effective Congress in history of America. It's embarrassing.
Should we call it unprecedented? My favorite word.
Yeah.
I'm almost tired of that word, but on the other hand, if we are using that word correctly, then there's way too much unprecedented stuff happening.
This is true.
Viewers, if you have things that you would like us to talk about, debate, look at, or whatever, send us drop us a line, and you'll be able to do that very thing, and then we'll talk about it. And if you're a scammer doing so, boy, am I gonna f so hard. And I do not use lube. I use pine tar.
I'm the guy dropping the pine tar on top of the PP.
That's his grift.